You might think you know exactly what to ask and how to treat your new boo, but think again. These are the first date myths you've got to stop believing. To find out the truth about first date myths, we spoke to Nicole Moore, a celebrity love and relationship coach who's the founder and CEO of LoveWorks Method. As her advice makes clear, if you're comfortable being yourself and can forget all the typical conventions, then you'll likely have a great time on your next date. To start off, one of the biggest first date myths is that it's a good idea to hide all your flaws and present an image of perfection, as Moore explains. Many people operate as if first dates are auditions where they have to present their best possible self, and this causes them to operate in a fake and overly curated manner. Not everyone is looking for someone who presents as perfect on the first date. Some are looking for authenticity and realness, so don't be afraid to reveal the real you on a first date. Instead of putting on an act, focus on how you feel and whether you're impressed or not. All you need to do is be yourself, and if your date doesn't fall for that, then they're not the one for you. Plus, your chances of landing a second date might actually increase if you're comfortable just being yourself, as vulnerable people with real personalities are always better than robots and Instagram filters. First dates are more for making first impressions and getting a sense of the other person than they are for truly getting to know each other. Genuinely understanding another person takes time, so don't try to rush things. As Nicole Moore points out, the truth is many people are currently operating with extreme dating fatigue, and they're looking for connections that feel new, inspiring, and original. So instead of asking standard questions like what do you do for a living or how many siblings do you have, you can opt for more exciting and thoughtful queries to stimulate a deeper connection. As Moore explains, when you ask original questions that evoke emotions, you're much more likely to spark a real connection and get asked out on a second date. So forget asking about where they went to school and instead find out about what movie character they'd like to be or which historical period they would time travel to. We've probably all heard that having sex early on can ruin any prospects of a long-term relationship, but is that really true? Not according to Nicole Moore, who insists. The truth is, there are many successful relationships that began with sex on the first date.
Hey, baby, I really need to physically express how I feel and all that.
The idea that sex equates to the kind of relationship without any real love or commitment stems from traditional views that aren't always relevant in a modern dating landscape. In actuality, sleeping with someone on the first date can indeed lead to deep connections that actually spur people to keep dating. Plus, as Moore notes, this myth is definitely more popular with heterosexual relationships, and it tends to be heavily biased towards shaming women for having sex on the first date rather than men. That's not to say that the opposite of this myth is true and that sex is required on a first date. It's a deeply personal decision that depends on each individual's preferences, so there's no right or wrong amount of time to wait. Moore advises following your intuition and staying true to your boundaries. If you grew up on Disney movies and rom-coms, you're probably waiting for that magical spark of chemistry to tell you that you found the one. However, this idea should stay in the realm of fantasy, as a lukewarm first date isn't necessarily a sign that you haven't met the right person. As Nicole Moore puts it, many people believe that chemistry has to be present from the very first date, or else that person is definitely not the one. But this is actually a myth. Yes, many people do experience an intuition that they've met the one after a first date, but for every couple who had instant chemistry on date one, there are many others who built a strong connection over time. The problem with waiting for this spark is that you might reject someone who could be great for you, as some connections grow slower than others. As Moore adds, this myth is not sexual orientation dependent, but it definitely seems to be more prevalent with women seeking men who have watched lots of romance movies or dating shows focused on finding the one. Ultimately, your gut will tell you whether or not you want to see your date ever again. There's no need to force yourself if you're really not feeling it, but be open to the idea that the burning magical chemistry might take a little bit of time to develop. While the concept of the man paying for the first date might seem romantic or chivalrous to some, it's a custom that's tied up in traditional gender roles. As Nicole Moore puts it bluntly, it doesn't have a lot of merit in today's dating landscape.
Okay, so, how should we do this?
Paying for the first date is linked to the idea of the man in straight couples being the provider while women take on more nurturing roles. But in a world where plenty of women make their own money and work equal hours to their male counterparts, this is no longer a given or even universally desirable. In fact, it's becoming increasingly common for heterosexual couples to split all bills in half. As Moore advises, if you have a personal preference to date someone who will pay on the first date, it's okay to have that preference, but try not to automatically assume assume things about a date who asks you to split the bill on the first date. Instead, communicate your expectations and desires with that person. If you're interested in dating them further, to see if you're on the same page about finances and paying for things. It can be difficult to talk about money issues later on in a relationship, so it's best to get this question out of the way and start off with a mutual understanding about finances.